Hey guys, I'm JC and today we're playing Aminatou the Fateshifter. This is a Super Friends deck that looks to control the board until it can finish the game with multiple Planeswalker ultimates. If you want to play this deck yourself, then swing by the channel where we have a deck tech discussing all of the included cards as well as the overall strategy. Let's see what our opponents do when Aminatou's friends come to town. Alrighty guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have Sliver Queen, we have the partner pairing of Rograkh with Yoshimaru, and finally we have Yawgmoth Thran Physician. Alright, if we take a look at our opening hand, I don't think we can keep it. We only have 2 lands, we have no ramp, and there's no guarantee we draw a 3rd land, so we'll have to mulligan. At least we are going first, so that gives us a little bit more power in being able to mulligan, and this second hand is a lot more better. 2 pieces of ramp, and we do have a win con in Deep Glow Escape, provided we draw one of our Planeswalkers, so we'll definitely hold on to this. And we draw a land for turn, so we'll just play that land. It'll come into play tapped, and then we'll pass it over to our opponents. Sliver Queen plays their land for turn, it comes into play tapped. And that is going to be it for them. Rograkh plays their land for turn. Now they start by casting their first commander, Yoshimaru Ever Faithful. Whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru. And then they quickly follow that up by casting their other commander, Rograkh. It has First Strike, Menace, and Trample. That is going to trigger Yoshimaru, so it'll get a +1/+1 counter. And the Voltron plan is already online on turn 1. And that is going to be it for them. Yawgmoth plays the land for turn. And now they cast a Crypt Breaker. 1 and a black, you can tap it, discard a card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And you can tap 3 untapped zombies you control to draw a card and lose a life. And that is going to be it for them. We draw an Ancient Tomb for turn. Okay, that's actually quite a good draw. So let's start by playing the Ancient Tomb. Then we'll use that to cast our Rules of Signet. And then we'll follow that up by casting our Talisman of Dominance. And that is going to be our turn done. Getting our mana pieces down so fast might actually attract the attention of the Rograkh Yoshimaru player. But so be it. Hopefully we can draw into a board wipe soon. Now the Sliver Queen starts by playing a tap land for turn. It is going to gain them 1 life. But that is going to be it for them. Rograkh starts by playing a legendary land for turn. That does trigger Yoshimaru. Next they cast a Soul Ring. And then they follow that up by casting Hazoret's Monument. Red creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. That triggers Yoshimaru to get another +1/+1 counter. Now Rograkh moves to combat. They send Yoshimaru our way. We'll have to take the damage. And they're just going to pass it over from there. The Rograkh player's certainly gotten off to a fast start, and seeing as they're starting to hit us, it means we're really on a clock here at the moment if they want to keep hitting us. Yawgmoth starts by casting Hunted Horror. Trample. When Hunted Horror ETBs, target opponent creates 2 3/3 green centaur creature tokens with protection from black. Alright, and they decide to give the Sliver Queen those creatures. Now they move to combat. Crypt Breaker swings our way. We take the damage, and that is it for the Yawgmoth player. Alright, well we gotta hope we draw a board wipe soon. And unfortunately that one is just a land there. So we'll start by playing our Sea of Clouds for turn. And unfortunately at the moment I think we actually have to sit with our Otawara up, and we might have to actually bounce Yoshimaru because the commander damage is going to start to add up. We may end up getting hit by the Centaur tokens and the Hunted Horror, but unfortunately that's just the position we're in, not being a creature heavy deck. We certainly can't get Aminatou down because she's just not going to survive, and I don't think it's worth resolving it just to draw 1 card. So let's just pass it over from here and see what happens. Sliver Queen plays a tap land for turn. Then they just move to combat. They decide to pass through combat, keeping the blockers up, and that is it for them. Rograkh plays a land for turn. Now they cast a Sword of Truth and Justice. A quick creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and from blue. Whenever a quick creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. Now they move to equip their Sword of Truth and Justice to Rograkh. We'll actually let that go through because it's currently Yoshimaru commander damage we have on us at the moment. So now they move to combat. Yoshimaru comes our way, and Rograkh goes towards the Yawgmoth player. I'll actually take another hit here. I thought the sword might have been going onto Yoshimaru, and then we definitely would have bounced it in response, but I think we can at least take 1 more hit. Now as damage goes through, that does trigger Sword of Truth and Justice. They put a counter on Rograkh, and then they proliferate both their creatures. We go down to 28 with 9 commander damage, and that is going to be it for their turn. Well, hopefully now that they've gone at the Yawgmoth player, they may actually send that Hunted Horror their way. They start by playing a land for turn. And now they cast Phyrexian Arena. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Now they move to combat. They actually just decide to pass through combat, and now they move to the end step. I think we'll actually bounce Yoshimaru here. I don't really want to take another hit now that we're down to 28. And now let's move to our turn. And there we go, we draw a Supreme Verdict just in time. So let's play our Flooded Strand for turn. We'll crack it straight away. We'll put our Raffine's Tower into play tapped. And now let's cast our Supreme Verdict. That goes through, it wipes the board. And then now we can pass it over, and hopefully if we get back to our next turn, playing another land means that we can get down Aminatou and Deep Glow Skate. And as long as our opponents don't develop too many creatures on board, that may be the plan. So we'd really like to see another Planeswalker actually come into our hand soon. So let's pass it over. Sliver Queen plays a land for turn, Anaya Panorama. Now they cast a Solemn Simulacrum. When it ETBs, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And when Solemn dies, you may draw a card. They go find themselves a basic, and that is going to be it for them. Rograkh starts by casting a Boros Signet. Next, they cast their commander Yoshimaru, which does trigger Hazoret's Monument, so they're going to be able to discard a card, and if they do, they'll draw. Let's see if they take that option. And they do, they discard a land. Then Yoshimaru resolves. And after that, they cast Day of Destiny. Legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. That triggers Yoshimaru once again, so we got a +1/+1 counter. And that is going to be it for their turn. Phyrexian Arena triggers on Yawgmoth's upkeep. They'll lose a life and draw a card. Now they play a land for turn. And then they cast Liliana of the Dark Realms. +1, search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Target creature gets +X/+X or -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. And -6, you get an emblem with swamps you control have tap, add 4 black mana. They actually downtick that straight away, targeting Yoshimaru. That's actually going to be a big help for us because Yoshimaru was the one reason why we probably weren't going to get down Aminatou next turn. So that buys us a little more time because Deep Glow Skate is going to be able to block the Solemn Simulacrum. So big thanks to the Yawgmoth player there. And that's going to be it for their turn. We draw a Coveted Jewel. Okay, that's a really good draw there. Really, really good draw. Let's start by playing Khan's Bastion. Then next we're going to cast our Coveted Jewel. When that ETBs, we're going to draw 3 cards. Oh, and we love to see that, a Peregrine Drake. So next we're going to actually cast our Peregrine Drake. When it ETBs, we can untap up to 5 lands. So we'll untap all our lands here. Now we'll get down Aminatou. Next we're going to flicker our Coveted Jewel. When that re-ETBs, we're going to draw another 3 cards. It'll also give us access to another 3 mana. Oh, and that's what we like to see as well, Toxic Deluge. So we have another answer for the board in case it gets crazy. And then I think we'll actually get our Jace down here. That way, if we hit our next turn, we'll be able to ultimate it using the Deep Glow Skate. And that's going to put our opponents in a real precarious position. So we'll uptick Jace here. We'll scry 1 and then draw a card. We have a Luxior Giada's Gift. I don't think we need that, so we'll put that on the bottom. And we draw Avensa the Sojourner. Okay, if we get that emblem, whenever you cast a spell, exile target permanent, then it's going to be pretty hard for our opponents to come back from that. But I think after all of that, we can pass the turn over. Peregrine Drake is going to be able to block Solemn Simulacrum, so we'll be able to hold on to our Coveted Jewel. As long as our opponents don't get anything down that's hasty, we should be right here. So very strong turn for us on turn 5. Sliver Queen starts by casting Maelstrom Pulse, targeting our Peregrine Drake. Destroy target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent. Okay, well that's a little unfortunate. That does mean that they're going to be able to steal the Coveted Jewel now. There's not much we can do about that. They move to combat. Solemn swings at Aminatou. Aminatou is going to go down here. We'll put her back in the command zone. And that is it for their turn. Rograkh starts their turn by recasting their commander Yoshimaru. That triggers Hazoret's Monument. They discard a card, so they'll draw. Next, they play a legendary land for turn, a Shinka the Blood-Soaked Keep. So that will trigger Yoshimaru. And then they recast their other commander Rograkh, which also triggers Hazoret's Monument. That triggers Yoshimaru once again. And then they cast Tuk Tuk the Explorer. That triggers Hazoret's Monument. They decide not to discard though this time. It has haste, and when it dies, create Tuk Tuk the Return, a legendary 5/5 colorless Goblin Golem artifact creature token. Alright, well unfortunately for us, that is a haste creature, which is going to be able to attack Jace. And it's going to be able to knock him low enough so that we can't get the ultimate next turn. That also triggers Yoshimaru, so it gets another counter. So our plans are going to have to change here. We may actually have to plan on casting our Toxic Deluge to wipe the board once again. Yep, and they do actually have enough mana to equip their Sword of Truth and Justice to Tuk Tuk. So luckily, Jace will survive, only on 1 counter though. They move to combat. Tuk Tuk actually decides to swing at our face, so they might want to actually steal the Coveted Jewel here. We can't block, so we'll take the damage. That triggers Coveted Jewel, so they're going to draw 3 cards, and then they'll gain control of it. That triggers Sword of Truth and Justice now. They put a 1/1 counter on Rograkh, and then they proliferate Rograkh and Yoshimaru. And then after that, they cast Basri Ket. +1, put a +1/+1 counter up to one target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Whenever one or more non-token creatures attack this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attack in. And -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. That triggers Yoshimaru, taking it up to an 8/8. Now they uptick Basri, targeting Rograkh. So it'll become a 5/6. And that is going to be it for their turn. Phyrexian Arena triggers on Yawgmoth's upkeep. They'll draw a card and lose a life. Now they play a land for turn, a Cabal Coffers. And then they cast Sorin Markov. +2, Sorin Markov deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. -3, target opponent's life total becomes 10. And -7, you control target player during that player's next turn. Okay, well if they target us with the -3 ability, that's going to make our Toxic Deluge a lot worse. But either way, we're going to have to do it. And actually, thankfully, they target the Rograkh player here. So they go down to 10. And that is going to be it for their turn. Okay, we draw Cyclonic Rift for turn. It's actually not a bad draw at all. So we'll definitely start by playing our land for turn. But actually, I think the plan still might actually be Toxic Deluge here. So let's start with that. We're going to have to tap our Ancient Tomb here, which is going to hurt. We'll pay 8 life, because Yoshimaru is currently the biggest creature on board. That goes through, that wipes all the creatures. That does trigger Solemn Simulacrum and Tuk Tuk. So the Sliver Queen draws a card here. And what we'll do next is we'll float the mana from our lands. Now we're going to cast Animate Dead. And we're going to target our Peregrine Drake. That resolves. Peregrine's going to allow us to untap up to 5 lands. We're going to untap all of our lands except for Ancient Tomb. Then next we're going to cast our Deep Glow Skate. We're going to double the number of counters on our Jace. That goes through. Now we're going to Ultimate Jace. So now whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, that's going to get countered. Next we'll cast Dimir Signet. And then we'll pass the turn from there. The Sliver Queen starts by cycling Forsake the Worldly. So I'll discard that and then draw a card. But that is going to be it for the Sliver Queen player. And already we can see the Jace's emblem doing work. Rograkh starts by playing a land for turn. Next they cast a Tajik. That is going to get countered, but it'll also trigger their Hazoret's Monument. Now they're able to discard and then draw if they'd like. And they do, they discard a Feldon. Next they recast their commander Yoshimaru. That triggers Hazoret's Monument. And they discard once again, this time a land. Next they move to equip their Sword of Truth and Justice to their token. That's going to allow them to actually get through here, which we don't want. So I'm actually going to try to use our Cyclonic Rift on the token. That goes through. So that's going to fizzle the equip ability. Next they activate Basri Ket, putting a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru. And now they cast Aroas, God of Victory. That also triggers Hazoret's Monument. But they opt not to discard this time. Aroas is indestructible as long as your devotion to red and white is less than 7. It isn't a creature. Creatures you control have menace and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. That triggers Yoshimaru, so it'll get another +1/+1 counter. It's now up to being a 5/5. And that is it for their turn. Phyrexian Arena triggers on Yawgmoth's upkeep. They'll draw and lose a life. Next they play a land for turn, an Urborg. So we all have swamps now, which is actually good for us. That turns off our Ancient Tomb from having to damage us. Then they start by casting a Bitter Blossom, which is going to get countered by our Jace. Now they activate Cabal Coffers, adding 6 black mana to their mana pool. And they cast Erebos, God of the Dead. Indestructible as long as your devotion to black is less than 5, it isn't a creature. Your opponents can't gain life, and you can pay 1 and a black and 2 life to draw a card. Next they cast Animate Dead, and it looks like they're targeting Tajik, Legion's Edge. Tajik does also have haste as well. They move to combat. Tajik swings towards the Rograkh player. They probably want to try to get the coveted jewel. Of course, Yoshimaru blocks. So I'm not too sure what they were trying to achieve there. Finally, they activate Sorin Markov, dealing 2 damage to us and then gaining 2 life for themselves. So we're down to 6. And that is going to be it for the Yawgmoth player. We draw a Will Kenrith for turn. So before we do anything else, what we're going to do is go to combat first so we can get back our coveted jewel. We'll swing with our Peregrine Drake. It has flying, so it won't be able to be blocked here. That triggers coveted jewel. So it comes back home. We draw 3 cards. Ooh, and we get an Austere Command. The next thing we'll do is we'll play a land for turn. Then we're going to cast our Venser. We'll follow that up by recasting Aminatou. That comes in. We'll use Jace to bounce Yoshimaru. Then we're going to flicker our Peregrine Drake. Peregrine Drake's going to re-ETB. We'll untap up to 5 lands. Then we'll cast Will Kenrith. Next we'll uptick Will. We'll target Erebos. So we'll remove all abilities from it. And then finally we're going to use Venser. And we're going to flicker Deep Glow Skate. So when it comes back at the end step, we're going to be able to double all the counters on our Planeswalkers. So we hit our end step now. Venser triggers. Deep Glow Escape re-enters the battlefield. We'll nominate all our Planeswalkers. And then we'll pass it over to the Sliver Queen player. The Sliver Queen starts by playing Bojuka Bog. And it targets us, as I expected it would. So we lose our graveyard. But it looks like that is it for them once again. So this Jace's Emblem is certainly doing work against the Sliver Queen player. Rograkh starts by recasting their commander, which gets countered by our emblem. It triggers Hazoret's Monument. And they decide not to discard. Then they recast Rograkh once again. That also triggers Hazoret's Monument, but they're probably not going to discard here. And then they cast a Commander's Plate. A quick creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. You can equip a commander for 3 or equip any creature for 5. And that is going to be it for their turn. Alright, well, our biggest worry at the moment is that Sorin being able to zap us. Now, hopefully this will be the last turn they'll be able to do it, because we do have Ugin to be able to get rid of it. Now, when Yawgmoth's upkeep, Phyrexian Arena triggers, they'll draw a card and lose a life. Now they play a Nykthos for turn. So the mono black deck certainly has access to a lot of mana. Let's see what they can do with it. Yawgmoth starts by activating Nykthos, adding 6 black mana to their mana pool. Now they tap down Cabal Coffers. That adds 11 total mana. Well, let's just hope we don't see something like a Torment of Hailfire here, because that will pretty much undo us. But they actually start by using Sorin to knock us down by 2 life so they can gain 2. They actually let all that mana float away. Maybe they were planning to use Erebos and didn't realize that they can't actually use it because it's lost all abilities. And they just move straight to their end step. Alright, well, this turn is where we really start to push far ahead of our opponents now. We're going to start by getting the emblem from Venser. So now whenever we cast a spell, we're going to be able to exile any permanent. Well, we have a response here from the Yawgmoth player. They just want to draw a card with Erebos. That's fine by us. Next, we're going to downtick Will, so that we can make our Planeswalker spells cost 2 less to cast. We'll also draw 2 cards. We'll target ourselves. We get a Rhystic Study and a Displacer Kitten. Alright, Displacer Kitten's going to do some pretty crazy things here. Let's actually start by casting Displacer Kitten. We'll tap for 3 blue and a black. That causes Venser to trigger. We're going to get rid of Sorin now. Sorin gets exiled. So now for every non-creature spell we cast, we're going to be able to flicker any of our non-land permanents, which is likely going to probably be our Coveted Jewel, so we can draw more cards. So next we'll cast Azorius Signet. That's going to trigger Venser and Displacer Kitten. We'll get rid of Rograkh here. Displacer Kitten can target our Coveted Jewel. That re-enters the battlefield. We're going to draw 3 cards. And we get a Liliana Dreadhorde General, a Terminus, and a Teferi. There's some very good draws. So with Liliana now, we can pretty much end the game here. So let's cast Liliana. That triggers Venser. We'll just get rid of Iroas. And we'll target the Coveted Jewel once again. That re-enters the battlefield. We draw 3 cards. We just get 3 lands. Liliana enters the battlefield. Now let's use Aminatou. We're going to flicker Deep Glow Escape. That re-enters the battlefield. We're going to nominate all our Planeswalkers, importantly including Liliana there. And then let's activate Liliana's ultimate ability. Now each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. And this should pretty much be game here. That automatically causes 2 of our opponents to scoop up. Our last opponent, the Sliver Queen player, has actually decided to stay. Then what we'll do after that is we'll cast out Teferi. That triggers Displacer Kitten. We'll just target Deep Glow Escape. We'll get rid of their land. Deep Glow Escape re-enters the battlefield. We'll hit all of our Planeswalkers once again. Then we'll also cast Ugin. That triggers Displacer Kitten. We'll target Coveted Jewel. Now Venser's trigger isn't a May ability, so we're actually going to have to target one of our own things here. We'll just target one of our Signets. Coveted Jewel re-enters. We draw another 3 cards. And now finally Ugin's going to resolve. Now we'll move to combat. We'll swing in Peregrine Drake. So we've been waiting here for a little bit, and it seems our opponent isn't really responding, so they might be a little salty with everything that we've just done to them. So I think we'll just be able to call it here, guys. So that is the game, and let's go to the review and discuss what happened. So in this game, things largely went to plan. We were able to develop our position, wipe the board of any problematic creatures, and then press our advantage when the time was right. This was partly helped by the Yawgmoth player using their removal on the Rograkh player. Because of how low to the ground and aggressive Rograkh appeared to be, if the Yawgmoth player hadn't used their removal on them, then we would have had a much harder fight on our hands. But the most pivotal moment had to be the turn we resolved our Coveted Jewel. On the turn we cast it, it gave us access to 6 additional cards as well as 6 additional mana to use that turn. That gave us the resources we needed to get ahead of our opponents and really demonstrated the power of that card in this deck. Well, that's it from me today.
Aminatou is a deck that's always well positioned in the meta because of how reliant other decks are on their creatures, so if you've been looking to play a control deck that doesn't just rely on a lot of counter spells, maybe give this one a try. Until next time, guys.